Have you ever felt like giving up? Like every English word you tried to say just echoed back in silence? In Denmark, I once found a small music box left behind by someone I loved. And somehow that sound taught me to listen again, not just to English but to life itself. This story isn't about grammar. It's about healing through sound, through language, and through one quiet song that changed everything. The day silence spoke. It started on a winter morning in Denmark, the kind of cold that makes even your thoughts freeze midair. I woke up to a strange stillness. No sound of wind, no laughter from the street below, not even the hum of the old radiator that usually argued with the cold. And then I saw it. A small wooden music box sitting by the window. It wasn't there the night before. The light touched its surface like it was afraid to disturb it. I turned the tiny key, and a soft melody filled the air, fragile, trembling, like it had been waiting years to be heard. I froze. It was the song he used to play before he left. Every note carried a memory. Every pause felt like a goodbye I never said properly. For a long moment I didn't move. I just listened. And for the first time silence didn't scare me, it spoke. That morning I realized something strange. We think silence means nothing, but it's full of stories. The problem is we never learned how to listen. When I first came to Denmark, I thought learning English was about words, vocabulary lists, grammar drills, pronunciation charts. But the truth? My ears were never really open. I was hearing sounds but not feelings. It's funny, isn't it? You can spend hours listening to people talk and still feel like you don't understand a thing. Not because your English is bad, but because your mind is somewhere else. You're not listening to connect. You're listening to survive. That's exactly how I felt back then. Every conversation was a test, every mistake a small heartbreak. But that song, the one from the box, reminded me of something I had forgotten. Understanding comes when your heart is quiet enough to listen. The melody didn't translate into words, yet I understood everything. Maybe that's what language truly is. Not a system, but a bridge between hearts. So I began to wonder, if music could reach me like that, could English do the same? Could I learn to listen the way I listened to that song, slowly, patiently, with curiosity instead of fear? That was the day I stopped studying English like a subject and started living it like a song. When English felt like noise. When I first moved to Denmark, English wasn't my friend. It was noise. It buzzed in my ears like a radio between stations, full of words I almost knew but never fully caught. People spoke, smiled, nodded, and I just stood there, pretending to understand, laughing half a second too late. Every sentence felt like a wave crashing before I could catch my breath. It's strange how language can make you feel invisible. You can walk through a crowd, surrounded by voices, and still feel like a ghost. That's how I felt on the bus rides to school, in cafes, in supermarkets, surrounded by life but locked inside my own silence. I remember one time someone asked me, "How's your day going?" And my brain froze. 3 simple words, but my tongue forgot how to move. I smiled awkwardly and said, "Yes." They laughed. I didn't. The truth is, my problem wasn't English itself, it was fear. Fear of being judged, of sounding stupid, of never being enough. Neuroscientists say that when you're anxious, your amygdala hijacks your brain. Your body enters fight or flight mode. And when that happens, your memory, pronunciation, and even your listening skills collapse. Your brain isn't trying to learn. It's trying to survive. So while my teachers told me to practice more, what I really needed was to relax. But how do you relax when every conversation feels like an exam? That's when I started doing something a bit crazy. I stopped trying to understand everything. Instead, I just listened. The rhythm, the tone, the pauses, like listening to a song instead of decoding a message. And something magical happened. My ears started to catch patterns. My brain stopped translating and started feeling. The noise slowly turned into meaning. Not perfect, but alive. It's like the difference between reading sheet music and hearing the melody. Maybe that's why we give up so easily when learning English. We chase perfection instead of connection. We listen for answers, not emotions. But the day I stopped forcing meaning, English started to sound human. That was the first small victory, when noise began turning into voice. Talking to the empty chair. My tiny apartment in Aarhus had one window, one lamp, and one very patient audience, a wooden chair. Every evening after class, I would sit across from it and start talking in English. Not perfect English, not beautiful English, just words. I pretended that chair was a real person, maybe a friend, maybe even him, the one who left the music box. At first, it felt ridiculous. I stumbled over every sentence, mixing up tenses, forgetting simple words like umbrella or because. I would stop mid-sentence, sigh, and say, "You see? I can't do this." And of course the chair said nothing. But somehow that silence was comforting. It didn't judge. It didn't laugh. It just listened. Here's something no one tells you about learning a language. It's not about grammar, it's about confidence in chaos. When you speak alone, your brain finally gets to practice without fear. Psychologists call it low-pressure repetition. It trains your speech muscles and rewires your brain to treat English as safe, not scary. It's like talking to a mirror, except you're also building courage molecule by molecule. Soon I began to enjoy it. I talked to the chair while cooking, brushing my teeth, even while washing dishes. I described what I saw outside. The sky is pink tonight. The rain smells like cold. Sometimes I'd argue with myself in English about silly things. Should I buy coffee or save money? It felt playful, not forced. One evening, something changed. I was explaining my day out loud, just rambling, when I suddenly realized I hadn't translated a single word in my head. I was thinking directly in English. It was messy, yes, but it flowed. I laughed out loud, a genuine laugh, because that was the moment I knew I wasn't pretending anymore. I was speaking. That chair witnessed every mispronounced word, every awkward pause, every mini triumph. It taught me that practice doesn't need applause. It just needs patience. Maybe fluency doesn't come from classrooms or teachers. Maybe it grows quietly in the corner of a small Danish apartment, between you and an empty chair that never interrupts. The science of listening. One rainy afternoon, while waiting for the bus in Aarhus, I was listening to a Danish podcast. I didn't understand much, but I noticed something strange. Even though my brain couldn't catch the words, it somehow caught the feeling. The tone, the rhythm, the rise and fall. It was like my ears were learning before my mind did. That's when I started digging into the science of listening. Turns out, neuroscientists have been saying this for years. The brain processes emotion faster than language. Before we even understand a word, our limbic system has already guessed the mood. That's why music moves us even when we don't know the lyrics. It's also why children can absorb language naturally. They feel first, then decode. Adults, on the other hand, try to decode first. And that's what kills flow. So I decided to train my ears like a musician. Every morning I play short English clips, podcasts, movie lines, even random TikToks, and instead of translating, I'd ask myself, what emotion do I hear? Not what does it mean, but what does it feel like? Angry? Calm? Playful? Serious? My ears started to notice subtle cues. The way voices lift at the end of a question, the way laughter sits between words, the tiny sighs before someone says something hard. And that's when English stopped being a puzzle. It became music. Scientists call this prosody, the melody of speech. It's what gives words their soul. Without it, even perfect grammar sounds robotic. But when you listen deeply, when you tune your ears to rhythm and tone, your brain builds what linguists call auditory maps. These maps help you predict sound patterns. Like when a melody returns to its chorus, I realized I'd been doing it wrong all along. I was memorizing, not feeling. But now I was finally hearing. Sometimes I'd sit by the window with the music box beside me, playing softly while I shadowed English phrases aloud. The melody blended with my words and something inside me clicked, like my heart and my tongue finally spoke the same language. So if you ever feel stuck, remember this. You don't learn English through your ears. You learn it through your emotions. Because every language at its core is just music disguised as meaning. Words that heal. It happened one quiet night. The rain had just stopped, and the streets outside glistened like liquid silver. I was sitting by the window again, holding the little music box. I turned the key and the melody began, slow, trembling, familiar. But this time something was different. As the tune played, my mind started whispering English words that fit its rhythm. Simple words. Honest words. It hurts, but I'm still here. I didn't plan it. The words just came. It felt like my heart was translating emotions before my brain could censor them. That was when I realized something powerful. Language isn't just for communication. It's for healing. See, when we speak, we release emotion. Psychologists call it verbal processing. Putting feelings into words actually reduces emotional pain. When you describe sadness, your brain moves activity from the emotional center, the amygdala, to the logical one, the prefrontal cortex. In other words, you calm the storm by naming it. That night I spoke out loud to the empty air about loss, about loneliness, about how learning English sometimes made me feel like a failure. But with each sentence, the pain felt lighter. Maybe that's why so many people write songs, poems, or letters in a language that's not their own. It gives them distance, a safer place to express truth. I started writing small notes in English every night, just 5 sentences about my day. At first, they were plain. Today was hard. I missed home. But slowly they grew softer, more hopeful. Today I tried again. The rain didn't feel sad this time. And here's the strange part. The more I wrote, the more I understood the music box's song. Not the literal notes, but the emotion inside them. It wasn't a song of sadness anymore. It was a song of healing. That's when I understood. Words can carry pain, but they can also carry light. If you're learning English, don't just memorize phrases. Speak your truth through them. Let every word be a tiny act of courage. Because when you put your pain into language, even broken and imperfect language, it becomes art. That's what the music box taught me. Pain fades, but meaning stays. Finding my voice again. There's a strange kind of silence that follows healing. Not empty but peaceful. That's what I began to feel after those late-night talks with myself, after letting English become my outlet instead of my obstacle. One morning I woke up, looked in the mirror and said out loud, "Good morning." It wasn't a practice sentence this time, it was real, natural, like the voice finally belonged to me. Before that, my voice had always felt borrowed from teachers, podcasts, or YouTube channels I mimicked. But now, every word carried a bit of me inside it. The accent wasn't perfect, but it was alive. It had warmth. And maybe that's what fluency really means, not sounding like a native, but sounding like yourself in another language. I began talking more to baristas, to classmates, to strangers at the bus stop. Not to impress anyone, but to connect. Each conversation was like opening another window inside my mind. And you know what? People didn't care if I made mistakes. In fact, most of them smiled, slowed down, and listened more carefully. Because when you speak with sincerity, people don't hear grammar. They hear heart. It reminded me of a study I once read. When we speak from emotion, the listener's brain actually synchronizes with ours. It's called neural mirroring. It's proof that connection matters more than correctness. And that's when my confidence returned. Not all at once, but like a gentle sunrise. I no longer needed the empty chair. I didn't need to hide behind silence or fear. English was no longer something I learned, it was something I lived. Sometimes I'd walk along the harbor talking softly to myself in English, describing the color of the sky, the smell of the sea, or just saying thank you for another day of progress. People might have thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. I had found my rhythm again, my voice. And it was free. So if you ever feel like you've lost your voice, remember, it's not gone. It's just waiting for you to listen. Patiently, gently, like the music box waiting to be wound again. Denmark changed my rhythm. If there's one thing Denmark teaches you, it's the beauty of slow. Life here moves differently. The buses don't rush, the people pause before they speak, and even the wind seems to breathe before it blows. First, this slowness frustrated me. I was used to chasing everything: fluency, success, approval, like they were trains I'd miss if I blinked. But Denmark somehow taught me to stop running. I remember sitting by the lake in Aarhus one evening, watching an old man feed the ducks. He spoke softly to them in Danish, his words melting into the sound of water. I didn't understand a single word, yet I understood everything. His tone was calm, rhythmic, almost musical. It hit me then. Maybe that's what I'd been missing all along. Rhythm. That I started slowing down my English too. Speaking like I was breathing through the words, not chasing them. I stopped trying to sound fast or native. I focused on clarity, on feeling each syllable roll off my tongue. And something magical happened. People started listening more. My words landed. My meaning stayed. Linguists say that rhythm is the backbone of communication. It creates predictability, and predictability creates understanding. That's why Danish people can speak slowly and still sound confident. Their pauses carry purpose, not hesitation. I wanted that. So I began practicing what I called mindful speaking. Every morning I'd take a walk and describe what I saw. The fog is sleeping on the roofs today. The city smells like fresh bread and rain. Saying those sentences out loud felt like matching my heartbeat with the world's pace. Slowly, steadily, beautifully. The more I adapted to Denmark's rhythm, the more natural English felt. My brain stopped treating it like a performance. It became conversation. Afloat, that's the thing about rhythm. It doesn't just change how you speak. It changes how you live. You start noticing more, feeling more, forgiving yourself more. And maybe fluency isn't about mastering the language, but mastering the silence between words. Denmark taught me that fluency is not speed, it's presence. The last song in the box. It was a Sunday morning when I decided to wind the music box one last time. The sunlight spilled through the curtains, turning the dust in the air into tiny golden stars. I turned the small silver key, and the familiar melody began, soft, trembling, full of memories. But this time it didn't sound sad. It sounded complete as the notes filled the room. I whispered quietly in English, "Thank you for teaching me how to listen." I realized I wasn't just talking to the music box, I was talking to the version of myself who once thought learning English was impossible, who used to cry over mistakes, who hid behind silence. And in that moment, something inside me clicked. The song didn't end with pain anymore. It ended with peace. The music box had always been a metaphor, hadn't it? Every time I turned that key, it reminded me of how language works. You give it energy, patience, attention, love, and it gives you music. But if you rush it or neglect it, the song fades. The same goes for English. You can't force fluency. You can only nurture it. When the last note faded, I sat in silence for a while. Not the heavy, lonely silence I used to fear. This one was warm, alive, full of meaning. It was the silence after understanding. I stepped outside, walked through the quiet Danish streets, and for the first time I didn't translate what I saw. The words came naturally. The morning feels kind. The air smells like beginnings. My English wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And that's when I understood the true message of the music box. Language doesn't end the pain, transforms it. Maybe that's the real song, not the one we hear, but the one we grow into. So if you're listening to this right now, feeling tired or stuck, remember you already have your own music box inside you. All you have to do is turn the key, slowly, gently, bravely, because every note, every mistake, every word you speak is part of your song.